What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is August 30th of 2018. Well, folks, it's time for a daily update here on the DataDash channel. Today, we've got a wide range of topics to discuss here on the update. First and foremost, as always, though, we're going to be spending a good amount of time taking a look at market valuations as well as doing some technical analysis on the market leaders. But outside of this as well, we've got some key topics to discuss. The money keeps flowing in from the venture capital and hedge fund world into cryptocurrencies. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the video. And along with that as well, I want to spend some time to talk about traditional markets and the short-term correlation between something that we saw back in January of this year when we saw a pretty stark pullback in US equities, a 300-point drop in the S&P 500, and could we be on course to repeating that, at least for the short term? We'll be talking about what that indicator is in just a bit. First and foremost, though, let's go ahead and dive into the daily update and take a look at crypto markets. Over the past few hours, we've experienced a decent pullback after the rally above $7,000 for Bitcoin. As you all quite know, we've been on a nice steady uptrend for Bitcoin over the past few weeks. We started to see shorts take less of a position in Bitcoin, and we'll take a look at that later on in regards to some of the leverage plays. However, we can see that for the most part, cryptos are taking a pullback over the past few days, and some of them on some of the candidates I'm watching again to add back in. And Nano, I've been keeping a sharp eye on. Holochain, I've been looking at definitely at these levels. And a few other players like Ontology I've been watching pretty steadily, and we'll take a look at a few of these as we go through the TA side of things. Now, I want to go ahead here and spend some time to talk about valuations and talk a little bit about market dominance. As we all know, it's pretty common at this point, it's common knowledge at this point that Bitcoin tends to lead markets. Wherever Bitcoin goes, we either tend to see altcoins remain at steady valuations, or we tend to find that they follow even farther than Bitcoin. It depends on the standards of the market, it depends on liquidity entering into the market, but at the moment we can see that obviously market cap has risen up a little bit, and it looks like we might be set back for a tad bit of a correction. Now, how far can we expect for this? Well, this really depends on a key level we're going to be taking a look at here in regards to TA, and this also goes with Bitcoin dominance. I'm not going to stand here and have a full-on position on Bitcoin dominance if we're going to see a massive depletion. I don't think we could see a massive depletion anytime soon, even though I think we could get a rebound in altcoins, and the reason why is because we don't have a new entry of liquidity like we did in December when there was massive run-ups in Bitcoin, and like we saw in December and January, a massive depletion going into altcoins. So I don't think we're going to be seeing something that stark, but I also don't think we're going to be seeing that much higher levels on Bitcoin dominance. So what's my key indicator here, at least for some short-term movements in Bitcoin dominance and comparative to that altcoin dominance as well? It's going to be really on one key thing here over the next few hours, and that is whether or not Bitcoin holds on the 50 and 100 day. Now, I think many people are looking to see Bitcoin come up and test the 200-day here, not to mention just simply fall in line with the line of resistance that we've seen on Bitcoin historically and see if this is going to hold. Now, the key thing I'm looking for here is moving averages. That's what I want to see, guys. I want to see that this is going to hold support here. Right now, we are testing around these levels. We're slightly below the 100-day, but again, we could get a close back up above these levels as well as the 50-day. If we can get that, I think we could see this continue upwards, and we could see it test towards 8,000, which would be very good for cryptos in the short term. I think altcoins will do well. I think Bitcoin will obviously be doing well if we can see the price get up to that range, and then it'll be a test as to whether or not we can get over the 200-day and make longer term run-ups in cryptocurrencies. But at the moment, again, we're waiting to see if this is going to hold on these levels. I'm not going to gain extreme confidence until we can hold on here for the next 24 to 48 hours and make higher moves. If we break below here, I can be very confident saying, guys, we're most likely going to retest down to these levels and test down to 6,000. Okay, so that's my general short-term position. I'm still neutral at this point. I want to see this hold on these moving averages, but at the moment, if we get a breakdown below, again, we're not going to be perma bulls here, and we're going to be fair and probably say that, there's not really any key levels to hold support. We probably have to come down to these levels. Again, it's either going to hold here at this previous resistance and make it new support and get above those moving averages, or it's going to probably do the opposite. It's probably going to go down to 6,000. Now, 4,000 or 5,000, I'll leave that up to you if you think that's going to happen. I really don't see it happening at these levels. I think we can come down to test 6,000 again, though. And if that's the case, we could get another tear down in altcoins and really maybe get another opportunity to pick up some of those that have rebounded quite well over the past few weeks. Speaking of altcoins, let's go ahead and talk about some of these. Ethereum, as always, has been on the watch in regards to the large cap players, and Ethereum, of course, is testing on the support line here. I think you're going to see this hold here for another few days, and I expect a decent rebound if it's going to keep in this technical pattern. If it doesn't, that is going to be very, very bad for Ethereum compared to Bitcoin, in my opinion. Even though there's a lot of catalysts probably coming that could encourage growth in the valuation of Ethereum, mostly Ethereum futures contracts, some of the updates such as Casper that is coming to Ethereum, things like that get me a little bit excited. But technically, if it doesn't hold here, I'm definitely going to be patient on adding to Ethereum until a much longer term downtrend, maybe coming down to these previous levels around 2,500,000 to 2,600,000 Satoshis. So we might have to wait a little bit longer until we really get optimistic on Ethereum. And this might be because Bitcoin might, outpace Ethereum. It might not mean that the USD valuation is going down, but it might mean that Bitcoin is going to rally and Ethereum won't be able to catch up. Going on here, let's go ahead and take a look at Ripple. Sorry, my mic was in the way, so I was missing the typing a little bit. Going on here to Ripple, I think, again, as we were talking about a potential of Bitcoin going to 6,000, you could very well see some of these market leaders come down to test their lows again, to test and find big evens for support, and then also to double bottom. I think a lot of people, before they get confident on the potential of a altcoin rally or an altcoin bounce in valuations, we want to see double bottoms in this market. It's a confident sign in regards to price strength confirmation for people who are trading heavily off TA or just simply wanting to make sure to to play the trend right. They're going to wait and see if we can get a double bottom on some of these players. Going on to Bitcoin Cash. In this case, Bitcoin Cash is almost like a lost cause at this point. I think, honestly, like I've said, we're going to probably see this come back down to 5 million Satoshis. A lot of that has to do with the BitThumb concern, or excuse me, not BitThumb, a lot of the Bitmain concerns with the exposure to Bitcoin Cash and whether or not, seeing as there's not really an OTC space for Bitcoin Cash, if they're going to have to dump straight on the order book, we'll have to see. Again, I just have no reason to really feel eager to trade Bitcoin Cash at the moment. As a trader, as a currency, we'll have to see if anything comes of it, but at the moment I'm not really too optimistic on Bitcoin Cash, nor am I extremely fearful, only outside of the Bitmain concerns. We'll see whether or not that really comes into play over the next few weeks. Going on here, EOS, I think EOS is going to see a rejection here at the 50-day, come back down to test these levels again around 70,000 Satoshis. I've been calling on the idea that we would see EOS come down here, but to be fair, with the drop that we got the other day coming down to this range, we might not see these levels again. I'm not really eager on EOS at the moment, though. Just doesn't seem like a player that I want to add at these levels, as much as it's going through a nice discount. It's just not the favorite trade at the moment. I want to go ahead and talk about a few outside of some of the market leaders I talk about. Again, you guys know my position on like Litecoin and Neo and Cardano. Again, they're down towards levels where I'm getting eager, but I don't have any trade positions built just yet. I think that most could see slightly lower levels. The things that I'm watching, again, are the peer-to-peer digital currency plays. So I've been talking a lot about this. I haven't built a position yet. I've been watching Manero down at these levels. I want to see this come back down and test this line of support again. And if it does, I think we're going to see a very nice steady rebound off those levels, as we've seen historically. Again, guys, just like the big thing I always emphasize is that so many people get caught up on trading within a few hours or a few days. I play the big swings. I mean, you can look historically here. You can place your bets. You can play your odds here. You've got a very favorable opportunity here down at these levels. Now, again, you have to decide for yourself if you feel this is a time to buy. But again, I look at where it maintains support and where we tend to see resistance. And Manero is a very, very easy player to read. And you can see this with a lot of peer-to-peer digital currency plays. For example, Dash just got a massive rebound the other day, as it went slightly below previous levels of resistance. And we can see now it's gotten back up there, and it looks like it might be testing to see if this can be support. Obviously, it gets a rejection at the 50-day. We'll have to see if it can maintain on that big even at around 2,500,000 Satoshis. I'm going to keep keeping an eye on that one, especially with the volume that came in on some exchanges. It was a big blowout day for Dash. Dash was one of the few players that really did well. Going on, I want to talk about Nano as well. The big focus here, guys, is the peer-to-peer digital currencies. We're actually seeing Nano over the past hour getting a little bit of a rebound off of the 100-day. But I want to focus more on the daily trend. To be fair, seeing as we've gone below the 200-hour, I think you're going to see this come down towards the 50-day and find support on this previous level of resistance and close down a lot of the exponential gains that we got and solidify most of the rebound that we've gotten off the bottom. I think that would be very healthy for Nano. So again, as you all know, I scaled a little bit of my position. I'm hoping to come back, hoping for price to come back down towards around 3,000 Satoshis, a nice big even level, and to cancel out some of these gains so we can make higher levels on Nano. I want it to build a nice base off of these parabolic gains. I'm a big fan of Nano personally, but as a trader, I'm going to remain patient on this one. We got a pretty dramatic rise up and a close down on those gains, and when you see that, you want to give some time and some patience for this to come down and build support. So again, currency plays are my focus. I'm waiting for those discounts. Give it a few days, guys. I think we've got a little bit lower levels we can see in altcoins, especially if Bitcoin can't hold on those key moving averages that we talked about, the 50 and 100 day. And if that's the case, we're going to have some solid discounts coming up in the altcoin space, and I'm definitely going to be eager to hopefully pick up some of those. Now, I did do some short-term trades. Two of those are in momentum plays. Those are Binance coin, which tends to historically do quite well no matter what the market conditions are. But along that as well, I've also done one in Tron and Bitcoin. I'll possibly do a little bit more details on why I'm engaging these trades. To be fair, they're more short-term speculative trades. I'm trying to make some small profits on these, nothing too big. I'm not playing the bigger swing on these. Again, the currency plays are what I'm focusing on. So maybe in a future episode, I'll talk a little bit about how I'm trading these at the moment, but they're nothing too big. It's the reason why I didn't, go all out and trying to share why I'm trading these altcoins. It's just more short-term. Going on, I want to spend some time to talk a little bit about, as we talked about a few days ago, we talked about the macro trends in the crypto space, some of the bigger trends going on in crypto. And we've been talking about, again, the optimism in the institutional space in OTC markets, over the counter, as well as in the hedge fund and the ICO space with venture capital. And this is a perfect example in the headlines, guys, about how Andreessen Horowitz, as well as Polychain Capital, have led continuously in regards to funding new blockchain startups. Even in this bear market, even in this kind of sideways twilight zone market, we're still seeing millions, if not billions of dollars getting tossed at new startups. It's just going more towards projects that have real technology and real hopes and optimism around them. So we can go down here. Again, this is a Swiss and US blockchain, US-based blockchain ecosystem platform known as Definity. This has been one that many people have been talking about. There was a lot of excitement about Definity back a few months ago with the amount that they raised. It was crazy amounts, but we've continued to see more funding into these projects, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop. And we've talked about this. I did a speech back in, for example, when I was in Lithuania for the Unconference, the Pillar Unconference, which was a really cool conference. I talked about the craziness in the ICO space and how funding is still getting tossed because people don't realize that we've seen higher levels in the dot-com era. We've seen much higher levels of funding during the peak of the dot-com era. And I think this is still not peak mania. I think we've still got some mania in regards to the ICO space because these are people with tons of money and they're looking to diversify. They're overexposed in Silicon Valley, and they're also overexposed in many cases. A lot of money has been moving from traditional markets and real estate into venture capital, and they're looking to diversify in different markets, even if it's very high risk. So I think you're going to continue to see this kind of stuff, guys. It's crazy. It does make sense. I think a lot of these projects are coming out at ridiculous valuations, and it's why I don't invest in many ICOs. I think the space has gotten a little more bearish as of recent, but the larger scale investors are still tossing money in. It's crazy. But yeah, I would say that, at least for me personally, I've stayed away from the ICO space, but just thought I'd share this. It seems pretty interesting how this is continuing to build up. We're still seeing money getting tossed into this space. Now, I want to spend some time here to talk about traditional equities, and I want to spend some time specifically to talk about a very interesting correlation that we're seeing like we saw back in January. And it has to do with the S&P 500 and the VIX. So we're going to go ahead here, take a look at the S&P 500, which as of recent, much like the NASDAQ, has continued to make all-time highs. It seems like equities cannot be stopped even after the stark correction we had back in January. Well, what's interesting is that not only are we well extended from the moving averages, we're far away from the 200-day as we were back here in early 2018 in January, but there's an interesting correlation that's going on in the background very quietly that I think people should heed to. Now, I'm not, again, trying to be a perma bear on equities. As you all know, 2018 is the first year that I've really stuck to being a bear on equities. I used to trade them quite frequently before crypto. However, I want to spend some time to talk about this correlation between a very important indicator, the VIX, which measures the past 30 days of volatility in regards to the S&P 500 and options markets. And we can see that there's a very, very interesting point that gets pointed out here in regards to this Bloomberg article. They call it a VIXing problem. I like it. And in regards to equities, when we start to see a rally in regards to the S&P 500, many times you'll see that there's a fear and greed index that many people go off of for these different sentiment indicators. And to be fair, I don't really care so much for sentiment indicators. They can do great sometimes, and sometimes they can miss out very largely. And this is what the Bloomberg article really points out, is that there were some key signs in a correlation between the VIX and the S&P 500 that we didn't find in a lot of these sentiment indicators, because the market was doing quite well. So I'll go ahead and, for example, show you kind of what I mean here. What's really nice is, again, we can compare things here. We'll pull up the S&P 500 over the VIX here. Now, again, the VIX is a contrarian indicator. If the VIX is spiking up, most likely markets are going down. We're seeing drastic fluctuations in price movement within a shorter period of time. And we can see that during this time, the VIX was remaining relatively low, as it should, as price is moving up. But interestingly enough, as we started to get towards the last 2 weeks of the rally, we could start to see the VIX ticking upward. We started to see the VIX moving up, even though markets were still making new highs here. So what does this tell us? Well, we had a disconnection between the VIX. We started to see more volatility even though we were making new highs. And this gave us an early warning sign of a larger breakout to the downside. Well, we can see as we go over here that even though markets are making new highs here, we are not getting a new basement in regards to price, a price for the index of the volatility for the S&P 500. The VIX is still making a higher base here than where it was back in 2018. And along with this, we are still making new highs in price. So what is this telling us here? The big thing I want to really point out here is that as the VIX is making a new higher base, does this mean I'm absolutely bearish and pessimistic on markets? No. Equities could still rally. We could see here that, again, the VIX didn't make new lows, and we had higher and higher levels here in regards to equities. The big point I really want to drill in here is that we have built a new base. We are now no longer down towards the perma bull kind of category of the VIX, where we could just see equities rally and there was no question as to when they were going to stop. We are now building a higher base here around 12, and we're really not making new lows except for a small dip down here back in early August. We're holding towards these higher levels. The question here is, what does this mean for markets? It means that people are they're a little bit off put in regards to the current state of equities. I think a lot of people are starting to question as to where we can really go with equities, how much further we can go, and I have no doubt we could probably see another few days or weeks where we could continue on this run up, but we need a pretty stark correction. When you have these kind of moves in markets, you need stark corrections, and the VIX is signaling that. If we take a look at the weekly, we can start to see the formation building. This is looking to have, whether or not we get as bad as we saw back in January and February, we're looking to get at least a short-term bump in the VIX, and it could carry to be something much worse if we can't hold well above these highs that we just surpassed. So again, keep an eye on the VIX. If we don't see lower levels in the VIX and we continue to hold 12, I expect a decent bump over the next few days in the VIX, meaning that we're probably going to see a nice little correction. Just depends as to whether or not we can really get that and hold at those levels. So again, I would say not to focus too much on the indexes. The indexes will continue to do as they please. They might make new highs. Don't get caught away in the headlines, guys. Focus on the contrarian indicators. Focus on the VIX, which is giving those early signs of where the market is gauging its confidence in equities, where it's gauging some kind of sentiment towards finding a fair valuation for these equities. Again, when you see volatility, there is uncertainty. That's really what volatility is. It is uncertainty on valuations, as we saw back here in February of 2018. So that's it for the video, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. I'd like to hear what you all think about the VIX at the moment, as well as some of the major indicators. And along with that as well, what do you all think about the current state of crypto markets? What are you keeping your eye on at the moment? I'd love to hear from you guys and see what you think is going to be some winners, whether it's going to be the king itself, Bitcoin, or you think there's some specific altcoins or categories of altcoins that you're interested in. I'd like to hear down below in the comments. But until the next video, everyone, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay tuned.